The draft is a week away, and Brett Veach has stuff to say about it. What does it all mean today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome in, everybody. We're brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off of your first purchase at Game Time. We have a ton to go over because they popped their heads out. Brett Veach actually spoke to the media today after the whole draft process. He does this every year. You can take some things away from it, and some things you have to read between the lines. We're going to get to all of that today. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. The draft guide is out at that site, rogueapc.com. The draft guide is available and ready for download right now, and it's instant. You buy it, you get it right away. You can get that there, as well as my rankings on NFL 33 and more on RGR Football. You can get Chris's content. All of it centralized at KC Chiefs Corner. Make sure you go subscribe to that. And if you want that much more, get on the text line at 816-357-8781 where breaking news breaks. You can find us there. Now, just so you guys know, we will have recaps of every day of the draft. We will have content for you on every selection after it happens. But going up to it, we're going to break it down for you today. Is there smoke or fire? What are these draft questions, and what's going to affect where Kansas City picks it, who they have the ability to pick? That's coming up later in the show. The roller coaster of rankings that has gone on and on and on, and a lot of it more so than most years affected by injuries. That's coming next. But we start with Brett Veach and his comments to the press, to the public, that give you a couple of takeaways in particular. I'm really intrigued by where they go here, and I feel a little bit vindicated. I'll tell you why in a minute. Chris, what stood out to you?
You know, I think you look at it and it's just him saying they have 12 to 13 first-round grades. I mean, that's really the big thing to me. Like, that tells me everything that I really need to know about what their draft plans are. If they're going to be trading up, it's going to be going after somebody specific, which you obviously already know. But the reality is that that's probably not going to be an option, because I can't imagine, although it's possible, but I can't imagine that one of those 12 or 13 guys is going to be still sitting there at 20, 21, 22, where the Chiefs can trade to get into that range. So generally speaking, I think the likelihood is that they're going to be trading back. He did say that they have a ton of early round, second round grades. So it would not shock me at all to see them trade back into the second round and try to pick up more picks for this year or for next year. And, you know, we've looked at a lot of mock drafts, and the big thing that sticks out to me is I still don't think that you're going to get a lot of, like, you're going to be able to put 10 rookies on this roster. I don't think that that's ever going to be the case generally with the Brett Veach roster. But I do think that you're going to be in a situation where if they trade back, they're going to get more premium picks, and they're probably going to be looking at trying to move up from where they already are in some of their other picks and get rid of some of the later round picks to pick up, you know, maybe in the 5th or 6th round instead of picking at the end of the 7th.
Yeah, small jumps to get out of the 200s would be my goal. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because about a month ago, when I got to the first fleshing out point where I have most of my grades in, I thought I was being stingy, and people gave me a lot of static. When I announced I had 16, at the time it was 17, now I only have 16 first-round grades in this class. And now to hear that the Chiefs, and the comment was 12 or 13, so maybe it's 13, but maybe they're hemming and hawing just like I am on one prospect. To see that they only have that is just telltale of what this class is. It's a lot of good. It's not a lot of great.
And the bad problem with that is that more than likely that's also going to be an issue with not a lot of QBs in the first. And so that makes it a lot harder to potentially trade that pick 31, because what do teams want to trade up for? They want to trade up for that 5th-year option. It becomes even more important at that QB position. If that's not something that you're going to go after, how does it play out going forward? And I do think that not having a strong QB class is going to hurt this year, probably more than most, because if they only have 12 or 13 picks in the first round, good luck getting anybody past 20. And, you know, I just think that's the reality at this point.
Yeah, you're right. Although I would take the opposite hopeful look at 31, in that if there's not a lot of quarterback talent, the two will go and most people will sign off. But teams like Cleveland and the Giants, depending on what they do with their first pick, et cetera, they could be coming after QB3 at 31. And that actually, I generally see QB3, QB4 usually go in the teens, maybe top 20s, right? So to have a bad class, I'm hoping that means that 30, 31 is where those teams need to come in to take advantage of that on, honestly, a Jackson Dart, according to most. I have him above Shedeur Sanders. We'll talk about some of my rankings later. But I think he could be a target. I think there's even rumor Jalen Milroe is going to go be in the green room. That means someone has told the NFL, we're considering taking him in the first round. That might be the magic ticket for the Kansas City Chiefs.
We can hope. I guess I just look at it differently because I'm sitting here going, I understand all the teams have their boards different, but I can't imagine that there are many teams in this class, or many teams in the NFL, 32 teams. I can't imagine that there's more than maybe 5 to 10 that have more than probably 15 guys that they have first round grades on. That's just a guess based on what we're hearing about this class. It's not a top heavy class. So to me, having to pick in the 20s, you're going to be trying to trade back into the 40s, and you're going to take less to do it. So will it work out for the Chiefs? We'll see. I hope that it will, but I don't know that that's going to be the case because of how poor this class is at the top end.
Yeah, I agree. Let's hope that goes wrong. The other thing that stood out to me that Brett Veach said is where the girth is, like you said, they have a lot of high seconds, meaning that 50 to 32 or 33 range is where they have a lot of grades. Mine is similar, but I still only have, I'm under 200, and most of the time the Chiefs are around 150 to 160, yet he said today they have 202 prospects on their board. So that talks to the depth of the class. Rounds 2 through 5 are going to be defensive tackle. Running backs, rounds 3 through 7, you're going to get running backs that can come in and help you. Do you have to go in the first round? No, and I actually think it'll force some teams who think they are more than a running back away to wait because they know the girth of that particular position group is going to be in 4 and 5 and places where you can get them. So I'm hoping that the depth pays off for the Chiefs, and the fact that they have so many on their board is a plus for them.
Well, we will see. I'm really going to be curious because he did talk about running backs. He talked about wide receiver a little bit during his press conference as well. So there's always something to look at. I do think that the other thing that I thought was kind of a keen takeaway was they're also looking at the returner position. So while we've talked about Nico being the guy, and as of right now he is, they still want to get better at that position. And if it's going to be a running back or if it's going to be a wide receiver, who knows? But they're looking in there.
Yeah, and that is key. So where are they? And what's happening now is the finaler come in. I'm building my board. You guys are going to get that for free over on NFL 33. You just got to go subscribe. Even as a free user, you'll get it. So make sure you do that. I'm stacking it right now. I should be done probably this evening. So what's changing? That's coming up next. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Not that you would know in Kansas City, but everywhere you can find it. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment it feels huge. And it's electric in that arena, much like it is in the college arenas around our area. You can get it all at Game Time, and they can help you with that stress-free last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time offers you fast, easy way to get playoff tickets, even when it's demand is super, super high, like it is where I am in Denver. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. That's key. So last-minute deals are where you get the deal. You can save up to 60%. All-in pricing makes it no surprise, so you don't get any kind of like shock at checkout. What you see is what you pay, and that's what you want. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That's all one word. Use that, and you'll get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, and guaranteed. Up and down and over and around. Go to Rogue APC, get the draft guide, and you will see. If you just want the draft board, I'll have that out for you next week at NFL 33 for free. Chris can tear it apart, see what you think, and we'll go from there. But rankings have been up and down a little bit here. And for me, and the way that I go about this, for those of you who don't know, long time been doing this before we were a podcast, before Rogue Analytics existed. been doing this to combine the production side along with the athleticism to go with the film. And as things come around and you hear more and more about the medical, things do change. And that's the big thing to me is there's a lot of folks, including myself, that are ignoring some of the injuries that are out there. And I'm starting to struggle with myself. Am I ignoring too much? Is this a sign of the times that we just assume medical conditions aren't as bad as they used to be?
I think that's part of it, but I also think that it's hard because you don't have the information that the teams have. And that's the reality is you're in a situation where we're looking at the prospects. This is what they can do on the field. This is where we think that they are if they're healthy, and everything else doesn't matter. That's not what the teams look at. So that makes it a little bit harder for people to look at the draft and say, okay, well, this guy should go in this round because of skill set. Okay, right. Skill is going to be part of it. The reason Trey Smith was still there was because of a medical issue. That's the only reason the Chiefs were able to get him in the 6th round. There's lots of other players that have medical issues. There's lots of other players that have off-the-field issues that also drop them down draft boards or get them taken off of draft boards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something else that it's really hard to quantify when you start looking at rankings and you start trying to rank players. You try to look at it from a perspective of based on talent, based on what I think he can do in the NFL, based on what I project he can probably do in the NFL, this is where I think that he needs to be ranked. But then, and I'm sure the teams do that to start, but then they make adjustments based on injuries, and then they make adjustments based on off the field and anything else in their interviews, which nobody is going to have information on other than the teams.
Slowly things do come out. And so like just in the last
little bit,
48 hours,
not a ton.
Right. But just in the last 48 hours, I've gotten information on 3 players in my top 16, the first-rate grades, that now, like Josh Simmons, we knew he had a significant injury, right? We knew he missed most of last season. That's fine. We knew that Kevin Winston was out all last year. Okay, we knew that. But knowing that the rechecks, that there's still concern out there about Abdul Carter, who's rumored to go in the top 5, and honestly, grade-wise on film, should. But John Campbell as well, the shoulder, there's still question out there. There's still people wondering if and when there is the proper place to take it that isn't as high as maybe we've been talking about. So it rolls right until last minute, the day of the draft. There will still be information rolling around. You just got to keep adjusting as we go.
Well, and it goes even further because the reality is that we think we know what some of these teams are going to do, but they change every single year. Front offices change. The people that are making the decisions change. They learn from their mistakes. They start making new mistakes, or they move to a different team and they're dealing with different perspectives and different ownership and all of that. So the reality is that we can look at a player and say, okay, we think that he's a top 5 player based on skill, but his medical makes us iffy that he's going to even be able to play 6 seasons. Maybe you don't care if you think that he can get through 5, because that's all that's going to matter if you're taking a top 5 player is he's going to get you his first contract, and that's all that matters to you. It's so tough when it gets to medical, when it gets to the off the field stuff, and when it gets to the stuff that we don't get to see a lot of because the interviews, we don't get that information. You're right. Small things come out, but it's very hard otherwise.
Yeah, you're right. And I try not to overreact. So guys that I've moved around and I've dinged a little bit for injury: Carter, Simmons, John Campbell. Winston was already a day 2 prospect on my board, and I've knocked him down a little bit more because of the recent update on that. So that gives you an idea of just what the teams are going through as well. Now, that's also what the Chiefs do a very good job of exploring, is not only the mental side, the interview side of it, but those medical checks. And they've had some late check-ins. Obviously, Josh Simmons came through town just a few days ago. That is their opportunity to put hands on. And so maybe I'm not reacting enough, but they'll know more than we do. And I still feel, despite all this, especially the injury back and forth, that he's probably still on their board when all is said and done, from everything I've heard outside of his visit to Kansas City.
If they go that direction, they go that direction. We're talking about rankings, but one of the things that actually falls into this that we didn't talk about when it came to Brett Veach's conversation is what he said about their new left tackle. He said, his conversation was pretty clear. They think they have a good left tackle, and maybe it's all smoke and mirrors. We'll see. We will find out. We will find out in a week. That's the reality. It could all be smoke and mirrors. But he was very clear that he thinks the whole reason that he wasn't playing more is because he's behind a first ballot Hall of Famer. And he is. He's behind Trent Williams. There's no doubt in that. So I'm not going to say Simmons is not on their board. I'm not going to say that they're not interested, and maybe they end up going that direction. I would still be a little surprised if they go left tackle in the first round, because I do think that by the time Kansas City's going to be able to pick, he's going to be long gone. So if they're going to make that type of pick, they're going to have to trade up, and they're going to have to trade way up to go get him, because I'm guessing that there's going to be some team that's going to see him and say, that's our franchise left tackle. We're going to take him here unless somebody is willing to overpay and overpay a lot to come up.
Yeah, it's all relative, right? Well,
right.
You say smoke or mirrors, and that's a good point, because we're going to go over what are the things from Brett or anyone else that are smoke and which ones are actual fire. That's coming up next. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means it's time to hire. You need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it free and easy to post for free on your profile with your network and get qualified candidates that you're looking for all in one place. So post your job. The new feature can even help you write job descriptions and then quickly get in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's the pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find the high quality hires right away. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Okay.
Smoke and mirrors.
So this
week out from the draft.
Right?
Sorry.
Just another version of our game. Is it hot or not? Is it smoke or is it fire? That kind of thing. And I'll let you start, because I have too many questions to even narrow it down right here.
Smoke or fire? I'll go with your opinion. Josh Simmons, is there smoke or is there fire there? Like, do you think that they're really interested in going for a left tackle in the first round? Because the reality is unless enough people have taken him off their board because of injuries and injury concerns, which we don't know the information on, he's likely top 15 pick?
Yeah, I mean, the injury is the big
concern. That's the problem.
Right, yeah. The injury is the big condition. What I've heard to this point, although it has been quiet since the whole, hey, he's doing these late visits, what I had heard is there were 8 or so teams that had him completely off the board. And okay. I'm sure that means there's probably at least the same number that had him drop down to early day 3, bottom of day 2, something like that. So that cuts out about half of the league. So you're right. Maybe 15 of them still see him as a top prospect. But unless they got their hands on him, and by my count, every report that I've seen, he only visited 6 teams. So that means those are the 6 that are seriously interested. Now, obviously, the Chiefs are the last one of those. But the question becomes is who's ready to pull the trigger? How many of them were hoping to get him in the second, or to trade up in the second, or trade into the bottom of the first? How many of that was going on? From that perspective, I think there is still fire. He was obviously on the Chiefs board. I think he's still on the Chiefs board. The other aspect of that, and I'll ask you, and I'll say this is fire about the pick and smoke about Jalen Moore, because when I put myself in Brett Veach's position, I'm going to say at every chance that I get that this guy who's been a career backup that I just gave $15 million a year to protect Patrick Mahomes' backside, I'm going to say he's going to be an all-star no matter what. Because I need him to hear it, and I need the fans to hear it, and I need the media to hear it. So I'm going to say that's smoke. Where do you stand?
I'm torn on it, honestly. I do think it's smoke for the most part. I think Veach is smart enough to know that he has to say that, not just for the player, but for the fan base and for the draft. And honestly, the biggest one of all of those is at the draft. Because if you don't say that for the draft, then you give up your thought process of, oh, we need to go get a left tackle. And you saw what happened to Kansas City last year when that happened. I still think Suamataia can be a good player. I don't think he's going to be their left tackle. It seems like he's going to be their guard. And I'm not going to be upset about them picking him where they picked him, because the reality is if he turns in to be a above average guard or even a very good guard, doesn't matter. He's protecting Patrick Mahomes, still worth a second round pick to me, regardless if it's not the positional value that you wanted with left tackle. So to me, if you think that Simmons is going to be your guy and you think that you can sign off on his medical, then you go make the move. If you don't think that, then you have to pump up what you have and you have to hope that you can get it to work. And the other part of the reality is that it's nice that they at least are going to be in a position where they know now, right after the draft, they're going to know whether or not they think that who's going to be their left tackle for the year. If it's going to be Moore, if it's going to be somebody else that's going to be stepping in. Moore still is probably going to be the left tackle to start the season, regardless of if they go and draft somebody. But man, it's got to be tempting to go try to get a left tackle if you think you have the ability to go do it right now.
Yeah, and I'll put it this way: Josh Simmons is the top tackle on my board based on film production and athleticism, right? And it's not close. Number 2 is a good margin behind him.
Let me ask you a question. Is it career threatening? Or is it just an injury that you think that is going to hamper him in 2025?
The reports are out there, and people still keep referring to it as an ACL. It's not an ACL, it's a patellar tendon. And the reports that I've gotten is that it is not as bad as it was originally thought to be on MRI. I don't know the specifics of that, but those words tell you that maybe it is something that doesn't have to be a career-ending injury, because a lot of them do turn into that. You get chronic arthritis, you get a number of things that affect the way that you move.
Chiefs had an offensive lineman that happened to. Was it Assembly a couple of years ago? Or no, they just had another offensive lineman that they had patella tendon injuries with, and it basically ended their career. So the Chiefs have dealt with it. They have an idea of what's going on there. So if they are willing to draft him, they know what they're getting themselves into, and they have to feel like they can sign off on it at that point. So to me, if they want to go that direction and they want to go make that move, I'm fine with it, because this goes back to what I said. Well, we've talked about this entire time when we were doing mocks. They have too many picks that are not going to be on this roster. You're not going to be having all those 7th round picks on the roster. You're not going to be having probably the 5th and 6th round picks on the roster unless you get core special teams guys that can kick out the guys that are at the back end right now.
Yep. And that's what it comes down to. Now, there's going to be more smoke and there's going to be definitely more fire. We're going to get into it more tomorrow. We're going to talk about some of the defensive ups and downs and rankings that you need to know as we get more and more ready for this. Don't forget, next week, the board will be out for free. You can get the draft guide right now at Rogue APC, and you can get my draft board when it's complete on NFL 33 as well. So I look forward to it. Thank you all for being here with us today. We have a great lineup. Again, we will have shows for you every day of the draft. We will have a recap. We will have what you need to know. We appreciate you hanging with us. Thanks for spending your time with us now. We're looking forward to draft weekend. Be here, be there, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.